Hi, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on using AI for process intelligence and hyperautomation. We are going to start right away. Speaker for today, Frédéric Bresson, partner process intelligence lead at Levio. He's an expert in leveraging AI in process mining and hyperautomation, helping data-driven organizations increase efficiency, grow revenue, and improve customer experience. He has more than 25 years of experience managing large digital transformation programs, as well as sales teams and marketing teams, with an extensive track record of success in SaaS, financial services, and consulting. And I'm here co-lead marketing for Levio just to ensure smooth proceedings. So let's move on. Objectives for today. Hopefully, at the end, you'll be able to envision where you can leverage process mining, understand how AI accelerates process mining, build the case for it in your organization, and understand hyperautomation best practices. The agenda, so first, matching the objectives, helping you build the case. Second part, how AI accelerates process mining. Steps to leverage process mining. Continuous improvement with process mining. Hyperautomation best practices, and very important for the Q&A. At the bottom of your Zoom window, you should have a Q&A option, a Q&A tab, but this is where you should ask your questions. At the end, we'll do our best to answer all questions. If ever we are running out of time, we will write back to attendees who have asked an unanswered question. And we want to do this in roughly 30 minutes. Quick introduction about who Levio is. So Levio is a digital native business and technology consulting firm. Quick introduction about our AI and data capabilities. So we have a team of 100 plus onshore AI and data science experts, including for process mining, supported by 200 plus cloud cybersecurity and integration experts, themselves supported by 1,600 plus IT specialists and business consultants. And as you can see, we serve clients in many industries. Now, on to you, Frédéric, to start helping you build the case for process mining.
Thank you very much, David. Bienvenue tout le monde. Heureux d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. Welcome, everyone. We're privileged to have in the audience people from different industries. We actually have some of our customers and business partners attending. So thank you all for taking the time. And I'm looking forward to have the next half hour with you and be able to continue the discussion after this presentation if there's interest for you to continue the discussion. In most organizations, there is a very robust and mature play to manage application and software development. There's also a very mature data management and security framework. But for many organizations, the process management is probably the weaker link of the three. And in the last 10 years, there's a number of emerging technology that help organizations manage and then automate their the business processes. And the sum of these different technologies can be now labeled within the process intelligence category, with hyperautomation as a means to further automate the business processes. The type of process intelligence technology that we will discuss today are mostly process mining. Process mining enables you, and we'll see through the presentation, but it enables you to visualize your business process as it happens for real in your organization by looking at the logs in your information systems and see where there have been activity traces. We can also use a complementary approach, which is task mining. Task mining will actually record one of your user or some of your users' screen, and then you understand the little details like which window they click and how they're doing the task that are subcomponents of an activity, which is a part of your business process. But process intelligence is also about the regular dashboard that enables you to monitor your process performance. It's about all kind of automation. So it could be business process automation or robotic process automation. And in the last 2-3 years, we had artificial intelligence that have been put on top and accelerate the deployment of process intelligence technology and increase the outcomes. Now, A recent study about a year ago by Gartner Group mentioned that if done right, an organization can expect to reduce their operational costs by up to 30% by applying hyperautomation. The key here is that you can automate a lot of these business process and reduce the manual labor involved into that. If we go back 20 years ago, the big thing was about offshoring and sending into countries where the wages were lower so that we can reduce our operational costs. Now with technology, we can actually automate the whole thing and avoiding these labor costs. Now, although Gartner mentioned that we can save up to 30%, one of the things they mentioned is that you really need to understand your process before you automate. There's a conflicting story. Well, actually, it's not conflicting, but there's also analysis that I've shown that 87% in average of the organization that launch a digital transformation program will in some way fail to attain their initial results. So either the project is delayed or the ROI is less than expected. And the key reason for that is that although there's a high potential, if you don't start by understanding your process correctly, you can quickly get yourself into trouble. And this is where you have improper documentation of the current system, therefore incorrect or incomplete instructions to the development team of the automation or the new system, whatever it is. And then we got into, well, you didn't tell me that you work this way. And the business user starts saying, well, you didn't ask me about that. And then we got into these delays. So at Levio, we have a process excellence framework. When we're working with our customer and we want them to improve their performance of the process, we're following this cycle where we first want to discover the process so that we understand in details how it works for real. Then we want to monitor it. So the infrastructure that we'll see in a few minutes that have been in place to do a deep discovery of the process can be refreshed on a regular basis. And then you can actually monitor the process performance. And then with the insights that you get from there, it's only then that you can really make significant improvement in terms of automation. And I'll show you in a few slides, but artificial intelligence is now supporting us in each of these three steps. Whenever we start a project, this is cool technology, and it's always a risk that we start trying to apply the cool technology without an end goal in mind. And like we can look at it in any different ways, but really what you're trying to do with process intelligence is to either or at the same time improve your process performance or its compliance. And if we want to improve the process performance, there's only three things we can do. We can reduce the cost of running a process. We can reduce the cycle time so that your customers, as an example, will receive their goods or services earlier, therefore increasing their satisfaction and improving the return, reducing churn, or we can improve quality. And basically, we can develop a number of metrics, but all of the metrics will be based on either have I made my process more compliant or did I improve my performance in one of these three categories? The key aspect of doing process intelligence is to build in the middle what we're calling the process warehouse. So typically when we would start a project, we would work with the business people in an organization and we will understand, okay, that procure to pay process or this order to cash, or if you're in insurance, this claim process, whatever it is, this onboarding of a new employee, there are a number of different activities that are currently done by different people or applications. And every time one of these activities is run, there's a trace somewhere into an information system. So at the left, we have some of the most common system. Many of you have probably SAP or another type of ERP. You probably have Salesforce or another system as your CRM. You probably have something like ServiceNow or something else to manage your like IT tickets or customer complaints or whatever it is. And then there's a number of homegrown system or legacy systems that you're using in your specific industry. But what we're doing, based on what we've discovered, as I said later, we're trying to understand where activities are happening, like which users is working in which system. And then from there, we will extract the proper tables from the different systems, and we will create what we're calling an event log, which is basically joining these different tables from different systems together and say, okay, I have a first process here, a second process here, and from there, this is where we can start doing analytics. So we will import that data into a process mining application or a dashboard application. And this is where we're getting visibility on these processes. But the first stage is really to build that process warehouse. And this is where probably 80% of the effort is done. But this is so beneficial because after that, you'll have another question, another question, another question. But then you have the actual process warehouse to report it. I've worked with many Six Sigma teams or like Lean Six Sigma, whatever quality methodology you're using. And a lot of time is spent into building the data environment to launch a project. When you have a process warehouse, you basically have all of the information readily available for any users in the organization that want to optimize the process. The typical views that you will get if you're doing process mining, the first one will be something like that that will show you the different transaction path that your process follows. So in this example here, I have about 5,000 cases that will follow the same sequence of 4 activities at the beginning. But from here, as you can see in the line, about half of them will take a path to the right to that activity, which is a manual entry of an invoice number. And the rest of the case will follow through in this path. So clearly hereby, like different vendors have different visualization, but you will basically see by the thickness of the line or the size of the halo or something like that, quickly what is your backbone in terms of transaction and where you have exceptions. And that might be interesting to understand, like these 100 cases that went this path, like why is this happening? And maybe I can avoid that. The second common view that you'll get is your process performance. So for the same process steps, we will see here automatically calculated by the system what has been the average duration for each activity and what has been the average time between activities. So when this activity ended, the next step for most of the cases was to have this activity started. In average here, we see that there was 0.14 seconds. So most likely these were this activity was an automated activity by a system that is launched automatically after the first one is completed. And then the third view that we commonly have is a view on your rework. So the rework is basically a sequence of the same activity happening more than once, which oftentimes is an indication that something went wrong and you're spending time where you shouldn't because the activity is coming back a second time. So as you can see here, my cases are coming here, then a number of them go to this activity, and come back. So I have a loop, and then the system is telling me where I have loop because I may want to have a look at this and understand why we have this loop. And maybe it's a documentation with a customer that is not clear and the forms are kind of coming up not filled properly or whatever it is, but we're trying to avoid loops as much as possible. Another commonly used view is a view like this where it shows me basically the different variants of my process. So in our case here, we had about 50% of our cases that followed a sequence, a unique sequence of 11 events. And you have here in this row color coded with the name of the activity, like that sequence. I can clearly see that the difference between my most frequent variant and the second one was like it's identical, but I had this activity here, the manual entry of the order number that was different. Like this was my activity here that come in. So I say like that would be a very interesting case to say, okay, why do we have these cases? So I can filter on just the instances where this is activity is happening and understand, okay, if I need to enter manually the invoice number, it's maybe because the invoice provided by my vendor is not clear enough and my automation is not able to pick it up. And then I will communicate to the vendor and say, okay, we need to improve the quality of your invoices because it's costing us to process that invoice automatically. So that was the typical historical way to do process mining and understand how the process works. Now, in the last few years, AI has enabled us to put process mining on steroids, and different vendors have implemented AI differently into their tools. But in summary, this is where AI is giving us an increase in efficiency. The first one is when we're building this event log, we basically need to link the different tables, and this work is somehow um, times intensive, and you need specialized people to be able to look at the different extract and understand like what would be the join between the tables and all this. And more tools have the ability to look at all of these tables and figure out by themselves what should be the relationship and recommend and build automatically at least a first iteration of the event log that you can then fine tune based on your own preferences. Um, in many cases, you have unstructured data into your system. So as an example, if you're doing like you have, I mentioned ServiceNow. If you're using ServiceNow, there's a lot of notes, either from the agents that are writing about a case, or maybe it's linked to your call center, and then you will have the call of your customer that are explaining their problems. All of this unstructured data is really difficult to use unless you have an AI model that summarizes it in a few lines and or categorize it. And then these categories that are automatically done way better than if someone would have to use a pick list. And like we all know what we do, we pick whatever case it is sometimes. The automatic classification then enables you to do root cause analysis that is much more adequate. Um, when we're creating measures, when we're creating statistics, like you need to be able to know certain languages, and this can be done automatically by the system. We have all kind of root cause analytics and predictive models that can be applied by AI. So with I can look at my last year cases as an example and find, okay, I want to know all of the times that I made a duplicate payment by mistake to a customer or a vendor. And then I want to have a score every time I have a transaction happening about the likelihood that I'm about to make a duplicate payment. And if the likelihood is high enough, I want to add a process step to review this and block the payment before it's issued to someone. Um, we have natural language query for business users. So business users in a previous system need to like interact with the tool with dashboards and or run queries. Now more and more you can just type a sentence and ask an outcome. So you'll say, please provide me a visualization that will show me the longest orders, those that are in my longest top 10 quintile as an example, and explain to me why this is happening. And then the system will basically replace me and provide you the answer automatically. And then we have a number of suggestions to do AI-enabled automation. Like if you're linking your process mining tool to an automation tool, you can then, with a certain outcome, say, build me an automation where if this, then that, if this happened, then automate that. And the system will automatically create that draft automation that you can then test and deploy. I mentioned quickly the case where we have duplicate payment. If you're ever interested in if you have data in SAP, Levio is the business partner of a company called DAB. They're a German company certified by SAP. In what we do with them, we have about 300 different analytics that have been developed on SAP, and we can basically run these analysis. Many of them are AI enabled to detect a number of different cases. So it can automate your internal controls. It can automate your access management. It can automate your master data quality, detect fraud, detect multiple payments. So if your organization is using SAP, there's a lot of things that have been developed that are pre-configured that really helps you pay for your project very quickly. I can guarantee that. Next step. So this was about what is process mining and why would you want to do this and why would you want to consider process mining before doing automation. Oftentimes we're being told, okay, that's interesting, but I don't know where to start. So if you remember this diagram, my first recommendation is you need to start where you have pain, where you have issues to solve. Don't even bother trying to do automation if you don't know that you have a problem that you want to address. If you don't have a problem to start, that's not a proper candidate. And the model that we've developed is the following. Like we're trying to align ourselves to the overall corporate objectives that you have. And in there, we're using the business capability model. So like if you're looking here at the top right, that would be kind of a, if you already have a business capability model in your organization, that would be your value chain. So that would be your HR process, your procurement, your customer service, etc. And if you're, for each part of the value chain, you have a number of business capabilities. And in an ideal scenario, we are able to understand for each capability which application, data, and business process are linked to it. And Levio has developed a tool that we can work with you. It kind of looks like this, but it's initially, it's a self-assessment that you do to say, okay, my bill and management process for compliance on 1 to 10, this is how comfortable or not I am with it. And for performance based on the cost to run, the quality, and the cycle time, how happy I am. And then you have kind of this dashboard that should give you a priority on which process you should prioritize. It's a great way to align stakeholders because I can guarantee you that most of these processes are spread across different teams, business unit, function, and just to get alignment is challenging, and that's a great tool to make sure that everyone has the same visibility. Now, it's not like there's different remedy for different process stage. So as an example, if you have low process awareness, if you don't understand how a certain process works, and there's no data about the process, it's probably an ad hoc process. And if the process is completely ad hoc, your best action plan is to define that process. So you may just want to send a business analyst and do the old school with Visio and draw how it works. Now that you have a high process awareness, like you understand how it works, you now have a manual process that you at least understand, like it's structured. People are doing it in the same fashion, more or less, from time to time, but it's more all manual. Your next best stage is to digitalize this. So you implement any kind of a workflow system that will digitize it so that it can still be manual, but at least the tasks are sent from one users to the other automatically. If you don't understand what your process is, but there's a lot of traces, then like you're facing a complex, unstructured process. This is why a process mining exercise is the best, because you will understand out of this sometimes mess how it really works. And then once you have this, you can properly automate your process. So depending of where we are, we may want to prioritize one of these approach. There are really two times where process intelligence and process mining are really useful. I would say it's before a large system migration. If you're in a certain instance of SAP and you're migrating to S4HANA, you want to understand how your current configuration is. If you're trying to migrate to ServiceNow in like you currently don't have documentation on your existing case management system, doing a process mining to understand the current state is the best way to reduce the risk of your project. But it's also and should be always looked at in a continuous improvement process. So what we like to do, like the typical project that we would recommend you, is to start with the preparation. So we define what is the perimeter of your process, what are main goals. We develop, like any process, a proper charter project plan. We select the vendor that we'll use. From there, we build the data pipeline. We do the discovery of the initial process. Then we get into the ongoing monitoring of the business process. And this is where we get into continuous improvement. You will detect trends. You can set up alerts and being alerted when something is about to go wrong before it goes wrong, and it's costly for your company. And then based on this, then you implement a number of improvements. And we've seen projects that were great at the beginning, but kind of died over time because they were really focused on these three phases. And sometimes this is what you wanted. You want to have kind of an audit, and this is good enough. But if you're going to do monitoring and improvement, you need to have people in your organization or consultants working with you that have that continuous improvement angle to the equation. And basically what we're recommending is to set up a cadence, and at every cycle, is it every week, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever it is, you're looking at the business performance and its compliance since the last time you reviewed the process. So you're looking at any deviation versus the expected outcomes. You're looking at the alerts and new trends that were detected in your process. Then the line of business will have every time new questions. They'll say, oh, I've heard about this, I've heard about that. We have this new problem because whatever happened. And then you basically capture the new areas where analysis will need to be done. You review the outcome of the analysis delivered in the last cycle. Like last week, you told me about this problem. We took the time to review it, and here are the findings. And then you review an opportunity pipeline. Over time, you will develop a number of potential improvement, and it's critical that you manage them properly. You quantify the baseline scenario, like what is your current state, and you measure the result of the improvement. And then you can report to whoever needs to have visibility on this program's success, how much you've actually saved. And this comes to like the summary of our presentation today. Best practice into hyperautomation. So we want to understand first how this process works by creating that process warehouse that we're creating, and we do at least at the beginning a one-time analysis. You can then augment this model with different AI models. You aim for continuous improvement, so have this cross-functional team in your organization that will collaborate on potential improvements on your process, and you establish a program governance and compliance. We discussed earlier about process compliance improvement. What we mean here is really a way for you to manage this program properly. So you'll have different stakeholders and different business teams. You need to make sure that there's clear ownership of who will do what. I can guarantee you that when you do process improvement, you'll have a bottleneck here and you'll improve it, but oftentimes it will shift workload somewhere else. So you need to have a cohesive collaboration, because I've seen cases where different teams were doing finger pointing, because you will basically let the organization show things that sometimes they're not yet ready to see. So we need to have a safe place to talk about our problems and have a common way to work on improvement opportunities.